Thank you, CMAT, for providing us this online forum for us to celebrate supply chain. We have your company for the next 30 minutes or so from what I hope would be a thought-provoking and educated conversation. With our esteemed panel, we'll be talking through some value drivers of supply chain operations that are challenged to meet the ever-changing consumer demand, and how most of you are achieving or can achieve business growth through what we're calling a hybrid technology model, not a one-size-fits-all approach. The aim being to deliver speed and precision, productivity, safety, and of course, lowering that total cost of ownership. So today I'm thrilled to be joined by Richard Whitten, who's the head of fulfillment at catch.com.au, and for his company and insights from Catch's recent transformation journey. From our perspective, we've got a lineup of members from our team from Körber, Rizan, who's primarily responsible for transformation strategies within our customer portfolio, Ravi, who heads up AMR implementation in ANZ, and Jamie, who heads up sales from Körber software portfolio in ANZ and Southeast Asia. Now, I'm Nish, MD, and lucky enough to lead this team that continues to push the boundaries from a tech perspective in APAC. So what I wanted to do first was kind of a bit of a prelude and kind of go through what it means right now, and its agility and adaptability really are the common drivers when it comes to business transformation. Rapidly changing and somewhat unpredictable environment. So we can't forget COVID, and I promised myself I'm not going to mention toilet paper or that you're on mute. But here we go. You know, from that perspective, there have been staggering online retail facts, and while I say these out loud from my notes here, I wanted to really talk through, you know, where we stand in the ecosystem and where everyone's competing faster for fulfillment, last mile delivery, replenishment, stock taking, visibility, decision-making, the power to make decisions for peak season just 12 weeks out. I mean, that's unheard of, and it's pretty real nowadays. So as I run through a couple of points I wanted to talk through, Australia Post recorded the biggest month in 211-year history with more than 52 million parcels delivered during December, up 20% from the same period in 2019. Boxing Day sales online were popular purchase. In the 2 weeks following Christmas, up 52.9% year on year across the country. December 22, 5.6 million households shopped online in 2020, up 21.3% from last year. And online sales expected to grow up to 12.8 billion in 2021. So, you know, let's learn from the best in the business transformation that shook up supply chain in recent days. Catch.com.au achieved the benefits of flexible automation using a hybrid tech approach, including GTP AMR, and was able to pick an additional 2,000 orders per hour and add an additional 20,000 SKUs over and above the impressive 80,000 SKUs. And to top it off, achieve faster same-day delivery and shipment delivery turnaround. So, Richard, I wanted to throw to you to walk us through that in terms of what was going through the minds of the team at Catch back in mid-2020 in the midst of COVID, and tell us a little bit about how the seed of automation and that too within a 3-month implementation period came about.
Well, Catch was already actually looking at AMR and how we could expand the automation prior to COVID. As a lot of people probably know, we got purchased by the Wesfarmers Group in August of the previous year. So we were already looking at what we would be doing to meet the growing demand that we foresaw coming in e-commerce. Of course, COVID hit, and then everything changed. And really what happened is that growth got accelerated and accelerated a lot beyond anybody's sort of expectations. And we saw ourselves with demand in April that was sort of equivalent to the Black Friday of the previous year. So peak came early and without the normal preparation that we put into it. And it was clear that as we approached the real peak season in a COVID year, and with the underlying growth that we would have had anyway, that we needed to do something quickly in order to meet that demand. AMR is a goods-to-person solution that's a bit different from the other goods-to-person solutions we already had deployed. We've got a Swisslog auto store, and we've got a KNAPP multi-shuttle system, which we were actually expanding even as all of this happened. But the difference with those sort of more established technologies, shall I say, is the length of time that it takes to put them in. With the expansion of the KNAPP system that we were doing, That was a sort of over a 2-year timeline. And to be honest, if you wanted to put something in from scratch these days, you're looking probably at 3 years from when you make the decision before it's going to go live.
Yeah.
AMR is a technology that we were able to deploy in around about 12 weeks. So from our perspective, where e-commerce is growing at such a rate that we need to be able to respond quickly to it, those traditional solutions aren't really working for us now. We can probably apply them retrospectively, but it's difficult to apply them quickly enough to keep up with the unexpected demand and the tremendous growth that we've seen. The other thing about AMR that's very attractive is how flexible it is. We've actually done something about this already. So our SKU range changed a bit through COVID, and we saw the bulkiness of our goods increase. So kind of mid-deployment, we've already changed the layouts of some of the pods and gone for larger locations than we originally envisaged. And this is something that, again, would be very difficult to do with a traditional automation. Once you buy an auto store system or a multi-shuttle system, you're tied into the tote sizes. It's basically impossible to change. Whereas with the AMR, they're very configurable and you can change them on the fly. And lastly, when we're trying to make long-term decisions in a period of a lot of unknowns, I mean, who's got a crystal ball that can predict what's going on at the moment? AMR is tremendously flexible. If we need a bigger building, we can put them in a truck and we can move them. If you've got a more traditional automation system, it's bolted to the ground. And in reality, moving it, you're cheaper off putting a new one in with the 3-year timelines and all the capital that involves. So the AMR is flexible, and that future-proofs it in a way that some of the more traditional solutions weren't able to do. That's not to say that they don't have a place. I mean, the multi-shuttle system for us remains at the core of our existing site and is a fantastic piece of kit, but there's no way we were going to be able to expand, and also getting the sign-off without the guarantee that that is going to meet the future needs would be very, very difficult. So working the two together has proved to be a fantastic solution.
Yes, obviously quite a large transformation. I mean, from that end, Riz, maybe might be a good opportunity to ask you a question around, from a transformation perspective. I know it's a bit of what comes first, chicken or the egg, but truly from your end, when we're talking to your clients, mm-hmm. Where does the transformation journey really, when you're looking at technology, really start?
Yeah, I know I promised you not to say anything about COVID, but COVID actually was one of the reasons that the transformation started for a lot of our customers. That hunger for solutions that can adapt and deploy quickly, like Richard mentioned, and also a technology that can work around other technologies such as Android voice and mobility was the key. So a lot of the customers are looking at how can they implement a particular technology quicker and also manage the growing demand. So a lot of my conversations these days talks about our customers have multiple options to purchase and get delivered goods, click and collect, to deliver to home, to many other options. So they need to keep up with that fulfillment requirement. So that's where the transformation comes into play around how can we keep up with our customer demand and how do we best service them. So a lot of the conversation starts there.
Yeah, okay. So around a lot of configuration, adaptability, flexibility, that side of things. Jamie, from a software perspective, does that kind of flexibility in terms of configuration, adaptability really need to attract heavy investment?
No, not at all, Nish. I think it's we use the word customization, which comes with a negative connotation these days, but the paradigm shifting, I think, catches a phenomenal testament to that with their ability to be agile. They own most of their solutions, and really they've led the market with being able to be nimble. And I think now more organizations, more retailers, e-tailers are really looking for those solutions from a software perspective that just don't provide an out-of-the-box solution, but also provide and enable them to own that solution and make those changes on the fly and not be at the mercy of a vendor or a software provider or a partner. I think with that being said, it really puts a positive spin on the customization and allows those organizations to really own that adaptability. And I mean, we all said COVID so far, I think, in this conversation, but COVID was a real testament to the change in consumer demand and consumer expectation. I mean, overnight, people had to stop going to the retail stores, and I think Catch had to pivot, become agile, and really in their fulfillment and fulfill more and more. I think the numbers that Richard said are staggering. I mean, back to Richard, could he have done that with not being agile and not being as nimble as they were, right? So they had the technology in there that enabled them to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you talk about this agility. I mean, Ravi, from your end, I mean, AMR and what Richard was talking about around the technology being able to pick it up and move it and so forth. What's your view? Where are we looking at? Is this really for greenfield or brownfield, or where's the sweet spot?
Look, I guess for our technology sense, I think AMR is quite pivotal in the sense that it's being able to be agile enough, but at the same time, it isn't just greenfield or brownfield sites. The technology itself that allows it to be scalable, to be, I guess, in a sense, you could relocate it very easily. So the technology, that we've embarked on has given a perspective is very different from traditional fixed automation sense, So I think we're actually giving ourselves in a market that has, is able to be agile enough. Yeah, absolutely. I think the technology sounds very well.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to that business case. And look, Richard, when you're weighing up this type of technology, I guess in many ways it's relatively new. And when you compare to, like as you mentioned earlier, traditional fixed asset automation, what's going through your mind when you're trying to weigh up this business case around it? I mean, I guess you've looked at the designated area you're looking to implement it in, the design, the workflows, the SKU density, etc. Is it purely based around fulfillment? Are there other considerations? What's your view on that?
I think most online businesses have witnessed over the last few years SKU proliferation. It's a common story. I mean, online, you're dealing with a lot more SKUs than you did in traditional retail. And you've got to hold a greater range for your customer for a greater period of time. With the old store model, products came in, you pushed them out, you got them into your stores, and they might be held in the retail area, but they're not sitting in the DC. So DCs that are dealing with online fulfillment need to deal with a lot more SKUs than previously. And some of the rules that I learned when I was early in my sort of logistics career have been turned on their head. The days of when you organized your warehouse and you have one SKU in one location in the DC, and you had your fast movers at the front and sort of like medium movers in the middle and slow movers at the back. But with online commerce, the orders coming in, they tend to be quite smaller orders. So the average picker is going to be picking multiple orders. And that sort of layout of a pick face just doesn't really work anymore, because they're going to have some fast movers, but they're going to have a range of slow movers in every pick path they do. And the pickers with a traditional method are walking a very, very long way. So one of the things that AMR allows us to do is to store multiple SKUs in the same slot, to use the space as efficiently as possible. So, we're really utilizing the cube as well as can be done. And allow for a picking algorithm that brings efficiency to come in, because you've got less moves per pod than if you had all the products stored in one place. Now, if I compare that with, let's say, a traditional multi-shuttle system, you may have a tote in a multi-shuttle system. It's probably not going to have that many SKUs in it. A lot of them are designed so they've only got a single SKU per tote. Others you can take, most I've seen is up to 4, but generally there's a lot of wasted space in that tote. So although you're getting a lot of better use of the building from a vertical height point of view, each individual tote within there may be, 60% empty. So the actual cube utilization isn't as good as it might seem at first sight. Whereas with AMR, because you can fill it to the max, you're utilizing the cube that you do have much more effectively. The other thing is if you've got a single location in a tote, you can get, let's say you've got one tote, it's got lots of small items in, but they're required in lots and lots of orders. That one tote then has to circle through multiple pick stations. Whereas with AMR, you'd probably have that product spread more evenly across the pods. And you're going to get less interference between different orders and different pick stations. So there are definite circumstances where AMR can win in a sort of a storage and a productivity scenario over the traditional methods.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sorry, carry on, Richard.
No, sorry, I was, I feel like maybe I got slightly off track on the question, but the benefits really are around the flexibility and the fact that you can put this solution in, and even if your product mix changes or your profile changes, you can still be fairly sure that you're going to be able to adapt it to meet those future needs. Whereas with the more traditional solutions, you've got to be pretty sure about what your business is going to look like in the future, because you're really locking yourself down.
Yeah, absolutely. You touched on a point earlier around multiple SKU in location. I mean, do you see any downside to that? I mean, I know traditionally there's been a viewpoint on that, but what's your view on, multi-SKU location?
Look, my view's really done a complete 180 in the last 5 years or so, and not wanting to mention competitors, but probably our most famous worldwide competitor, when I saw how they were doing things and the random stow, the methods that they were using, and multi-SKU, it really made me rethink a lot of my early sacred cows, really. And it's a very different way of doing things to how you traditionally organize a DC. But when you think about it, and you think about even in a manual scenario where somebody's walking, and if the product that they need to pick is only in one place in the pick face, they've got to walk to that one place. If the product is scattered throughout the pick face, chances are that there's going to be an item somewhere closer to them that they can get to. So even in a manual environment, it really reduces the pick runs. But when you then take that philosophy through to automation, it works again there, because I'm looking at AMR. If all of the product was in one single pod, then that pod has to be collected by a robot and taken to the pick station. And it may be, again, travel distance is the same for robots as it is for people. There may be a lot of travel distance involved in that. But what happens if that pod is required across 5 pick stations at the same time? If the product is separated and you've got mixed SKUs, but you've tried to limit the amount that you've got in any individual location, chances are you've got 5 pods, so you're not limited to one that you can pull. And I think it's a much better way of doing things in the e-commerce environment. I think the other thing that's changed is the technology that's now available to us in terms of being able to display an image at the point of a picker. I mean, years ago with a basic black and green RF gun, that just wasn't possible. But now we can display the same image that the buyer is looking at on the website when they go in and they purchase the item. We can display that to the picker, so the picker is looking at the same image that the customer is looking at and making sure that they get the right item. And technology such as the laser lights that you've put into identifying the right location, they're going into a location, there may be 2 or 3 different items in there, or even 4 or 5. But chances are that those are being controlled on the way in, so that they're very different items. And they're looking at a picture of that product on the screen. It's quite difficult for them to get that wrong, really. So I think most of the downsides in mixing products have been addressed with the advances in technology.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's interesting you mentioned those laser lights. I put those in myself, but just Ravi, in terms of that planning and that architecture and this level of complexity, I guess, in terms of what Richard's referring to. I mean, can you talk about what the process is? When you're going through the design elements of planning an AMR project.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess one of the things that we do look at is the entire aspect of, yes, it is one part that we're trying to create efficiencies with regards to picking and fulfillment, but the underlying process in how that goes about is adds quite a bit, in terms of the what the solution would look like. So, when you talk about being able to pick the products and being able to be efficient about it, yes, what are the downside effects or downstream effects and upstream effects of it? So, as Richard mentioned, trying to embark in terms of the utilizing technology to clearly enable the operator to easily identify the product and also pick the product. That goes a big way in terms of creating the efficiencies in itself, especially when you talk about multi-skewing locations where you've got multiple products in the same location. So the workflow in itself, how does that enable the operator to be able to be efficient, and then the downstream effects of it as well. Is there any I guess in terms of creating inefficiencies within that whole process? Is there anything that will create complications downstream? So all of that we take into consideration, and when we design the AMR solution, we want to make sure that the upstream downstream processes are in sync.
Yeah, right. And I guess this is where, as part of that process, you kind of look at complementing technology and so forth, and where that fits in. And Riz, you touched a little bit earlier on Android voice and mobility and all these type of things, but obviously there's other complementing technologies from a robotics perspective, where we're seeing, you're starting to see some, I guess, collaboration. Perhaps you want to expand a little bit on that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of areas that we call it feeding the beast, being the automation solution, but there's adjoining technologies, not only prior to putting the stock into the technology such as AMR, but after what happens. I think there's a lot of moving technology that enables team members to consolidate some of the replenishment orders, and then brings it and drops it off to a location where you can load the AMR pod. So basically, taking the time that a team member had to walk around and pick all those items and bring it back, it streamlined those processes. So we can couple a automated guided vehicle with the Android voice technology, and eliminate some of the dead time, the walking time that we would say in a distribution center. And also what happens after the order is completed. So there's packaging technology. We spoke about Australia Post being had to deliver a lot of parcels this year. How do we be a little bit more smarter? One of the conversations Richard brought up when we were designing our second site was how can we better sort the parcels to go into the relevant areas. So the sortation technology comes into play, where we can sort parcels by a postcode or a relevant section of a state. That'll speed up the delivery process. So that enables Catch to deliver parcels quicker. So surprise and delight, if you order something and say it's going to come get delivered to you in 2 days, suddenly it rocks up in the afternoon or even first thing next day morning. That the underlying solutions that enables that, it's important to plan it and use it in such a way that our customers can get the best out of it.
Yeah, okay. And I guess from a software perspective, I mean, Richard talked a little bit about the sacred cow before. I guess the elephant in the room, I guess, if it want for another term, would have been the fact, from a software perspective, there's a number of sites, AMR sites even, that are integrating into what we call legacy high jump software. And Jamie, from your end, legacy high jump was in market and left a few years ago. And what's the revitalized, I guess, Körber proposition now that high jump is Körber?
Call it left, call it sabbatical, call it hiatus. But yeah, you're right, Nish. It's a good point to bring up. But since the acquisition and since Körber took on the high jump products, amongst their other products, there's a large focus in Asia Pacific. I mean, already a large number of our Körber revenue already comes from the market through pharmaceuticals or tissue or toilet paper. Sorry, I know we weren't going to say that on this session. But with that being said, Körber has a very big focus and a very large focus. I mean, we acquired the legacy Cohesio group at the end of 2019. That brought what 50, 60 new heads to the business. That enables us to now bring more products into the region, leverage more products, cross-sell products, synergize better, and with that all in mind, it's now become really a center of excellence for our full product suite, right? There's large investment going on, as you're well aware. We're onboarding more capability, more individuals. So now it's become the paradigm from a Körber perspective is now pivoted to really focus on that Asian market. North America is already a very established market. Europe's already a very established market. Asia Pacific is still a very fragmented market, and really the initiative is to really build the core competencies, introduce new technologies that were never sold here or supported here, onboard new individuals and resources to manage those, and really build out this region as really the center of excellence through AMR, voice, and then software and WCS and whatever else is in the market. So yeah, listen, there was a hiatus, but the hiatus is over, or sabbatical is over. There's a big focus here and a lot of aggressive moves to grow out this market, as you're very privy to and aware.
Absolutely, back bigger than ever, and I guess growth is a critical part there. And Richard, after a I guess record-breaking Black Friday, Christmas, Boxing Day, etc., what does the future look like for Catch?
Well, it looks pretty rosy from a sales point of view. From a fulfillment point of view, we need to get product to the customer ever quicker. Riz talked about speed. Speed to customer is going to be one of the major competitive advantages if you've got it, and a real problem for you if you haven't. And that's one of the key reasons to automate is really about being able to turn those orders around pretty much as they come in and get them straight out. I think for Catch, we see e-commerce growing. We're obviously one of the marketplaces in Australia. And we're hoping to increase our share of that. And we'll do that by making sure that we're giving the customer exactly what they want as quickly as possible, and at the right price, which has always been Catch's selling point. But speed is going to become more and more important in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And with speed comes the potential bottleneck, I guess, from that perspective. And and Ravi, keen to get your insights here on what's often forgotten when you're looking at this type of technology and prioritizing, when considering flexible hybrid tech stack, these type of things. Where do you see the bottlenecks and the opportunities there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of times that when businesses look at AMR technology and they focus quite a bit in terms of the outbound fulfillment, and they negate to look at what is that downstream and upstream processes. So a lot of time the thought process is from a business point of view in terms of getting out X amount of throughput per hour, but they don't realize that as a result of being efficient in one process, that there is a downstream effect in terms of being able to keep up with that from a outbound packaging point of view. How do you pack the items? How do you actually really fulfill those customer goods? And then the upstream part of it is, how do you keep and maintain that you've got enough and sufficient stock levels in the AMR grid in itself, or the pick faces. So when we actually design the system, we actually design it to look at the overarching, the upstream process results and the downstream effects.
Yeah, okay. That's you talk about that outbound part. I mean, Richard, we're starting to see, and we've heard a lot about the catch model around the click and collect and these type of things transitioning into heading into traditional bricks and mortar pickup and so forth. Have we seen outside of that much more change with the collaboration and acquisition since being part of Wesfarmers?
Well, the first stage really was to roll the click and collect out to Target and Kmart, and we're now going to a tremendous amount. I think there's another 400, just over 400 Kmart stores come on in the last couple of weeks as potential click and collect pickup points for us. And obviously we've been going into Target for a little while. It's a very popular option with the customer. They're, with a lot of our customers are avid Kmart and Target customers. They're two extremely well-trusted brands in Australia.
Yeah.
And depending on your personal circumstances, it may be a very convenient option for you to go and get your parcel from the local Kmart and Target store. We can get the product to them pretty quickly. And the fact that we're pushing more parcels in gives us some scale efficiencies as well. So it reduces the freight costs going to those individual stores, which is something that we've been able to pass on to the customer. So I think it's going to be a significant part of what we do going forwards. But we've got to look at more and more ways of getting the product to the customer quickly, and basically putting options out there so that what works for me may not work for you, and might be entirely different again for Riz or one of our other customers. So it's making sure that options are out there so that as a customer you can go in and you can choose the service and the speed level and get the service that works for you, and make sure that we are providing those options and then backing them up with really solid service.
Yeah, I mean, Riz is a fairly unique consumer, I guess, in terms of the things that he likes to purchase, but
very unique.
But we see in terms of that bricks and mortar space, or in general, I mean, where do you see? I mean, there's a whole buzz around micro fulfillment at the moment. What are your thoughts on that, Richard?
I think it's got a part to play. I don't think bricks and mortar are ever going to go away. I think customers will always want the ability to go out and touch the product. And, sometimes you just want to take your mother out shopping, yeah? And there's a place for bricks and mortar to do that. But I do see that we're going to see more and more of the Australian retail market move online, and that convenience will be king. And we'll get to a point where it's more convenient to purchase what you want and get it delivered to you in whichever way you prefer online than we've seen in the past. And look, the micro fulfillment it's interesting, and obviously we've got very different demographics to a lot of countries that are ahead of us.
Yeah.
So if we look at the US or the UK, the population density is completely different to where we are in Australia. And where we do, we've got centres of population density in the big cities, but they're very, very spread out. So we've got a different set of challenges to overcome to those that are encountered in other parts of the globe. But at the end of the day, the consumer pretty much wants the same thing. They want great value, they want a good range and choice of products, and they want them delivered to them as quickly as they can in a way that is as convenient to them as possible. If you've got to stay in to collect your delivery, well, that might not be that convenient. And, you know, if you've got to go out of your way to go and pick it up, that might not be that convenient. So we've got to find ways of getting it to the customer that's convenient for them, as well as meeting their speed requirements.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I guess we're probably soon running out of time, but look, I wanted to touch on that. I mean, that's micro-fulfillment's an interesting piece around the theme, I guess, being around flexibility, agility, and so forth. And when we look at traditional automation, and I guess unless it's, you know, particularly in that 3PL space,
yeah,
I think you look at this type of technology, you know, Rizan, you've been, I guess, engaged with a number of Körber 3PL clients and prospective clients and so forth in relation to this tech. Where's the mindset around this type of flexible automation?
They're open. I think a lot of the 3PLs have well done a 180 in terms of their thinking. Their customers, like Catch, are looking for flexibility. They're looking for dynamic technology. And it's hard for them to, one, go for a crystal ball approach and say, here's a 5-year contract and here's how we're going to charge you for all the services, because it changes day in, day out. So now 3PLs are more in line with what customers like Catch are looking for, a technology that are dynamic, and also contracts that are not 5 years, not locked in. How can we make it 3+2? How can we make it 12 months at a time? How can we make it simple for our customer to adapt? And the other thing is there's a big surge of online retailers coming on board as well. So people who used to sell on Instagram, Catch's competitors could be, that they are, during COVID, they have double, triple, quadruple their businesses, and someone like that wouldn't have the capability or capacity to sign a massive contract with the 3PL. So how can they attract some of those customers in? So they need to think about how can they be a bit more flexible in terms of the solutions that they provide and the contracts they provide. So yeah, that has driven them to think about flexible automation rather than going for a traditional type automation technology. So that's the key.
I think I'll just chip in there as well and say, obviously, if you're looking at something like a micro-fulfillment center, it might be an experiment, and it's difficult to experiment with the old style automation, whereas you could put an experiment in and put some AMR units into a smaller facility and see how micro-fulfillment works for you. Because if it doesn't work out, or you know, it doesn't make sense in that area, well, firstly, the capital is a lot less, but secondly, you can pull them out and redeploy them somewhere else. Whereas you just can't do that with the bolted to the floor, long lead time types of equipment.
Yeah, absolutely. Jamie, what are you seeing in the 3PL space? I mean, that's kind of somewhere we're fairly well entrenched.
I mean, our 3PLs, our customers, and some of our opportunities are just looking for solutions that Riz said are rapidly on board. A customer can come, they can get their product into the business, into the 3PL, into the shed within a couple of weeks. They have that visibility. Now, we're not saying end-to-end, point-to-point integration, but they're able to get them onboarded very rapidly. The customer has that opportunity to go in and view their inventory, fulfilled rapidly. And really, that's the biggest trend we're seeing, just the ease of bringing customers on board. I mean, we spoke to a customer recently, one of our current AMR customers, and they asked us, hey, we need to have a system that brings on, or we're able to bring on a customer within a week, 10 days, right? And it's cost effective, isn't breaking the bank. And yeah, we were able to position ourselves there, but it's just really what we're seeing is rapidness of onboarding. That's the biggest thing within the software side. And I think Riz or Ravi mentioned it, just dynamic technology is just that ability to go. A lot of these companies are now running at 1,000,000 miles an hour. There's no time to go through the layers and layers. They just got to move quick, right? It's a very competitive, low margin market out there. So speed to market is really the key driving factor here in getting on board quickly.
Yeah, that's a good insight. And I guess we're nearly out of time, but probably, Richard, just throw one more question to you. Obviously, we've got, you alluded to the fact that you've got quite a large competitor in market. You know, what's the plan they're going to take them on?
Well, obviously, we're not in it to come second. So yeah, absolutely.
No, for sure, for sure. Look, we'll probably wrap it up there. Look, I just wanted to again thank you again for your company, and also to the panelists. I invite you all to reach out to us all for a longer chat. Discovery, Q&A, informal catch up, or a coffee or a cold one. Whatever you like. But we've got a small video to play now, and just a really quick one. But don't forget to check out our virtual booth and enjoy the rest of CMAT. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.